All right, so guys, today I'm here in my dad's workshop because it is really freaking windy outside, and it's kind of no reason to show you that, but there you go. That's what the outside looks like. So I wanted to talk about something very near and dear to my nerd heart, which is film scanning. So obviously I'm a photographer, right? I mean, maybe it's not obvious. I don't know. It's obvious to me. That wasn't funny. Okay, whatever. So I'm a photographer, and I started doing photography like a year ago or so. And I started with like an RB67, which is a medium format camera, because I'm too stuck up to start with a 35 millimeter. And it was fun. It was great. But I realized pretty quickly that obviously you have to get this film you have to get your pictures onto the computer, because film is a physical medium for anyone, who doesn't use film, whatever. So I looked into getting a film scanner, but the problem with them is they're consistently underwhelming. They're really not that great compared to other options, which, we'll get into in a minute here. So I didn't want to get a film scanner, and you can send it off to people to scan it, but they're also just using film scanners, for anyone who's like reasonably pricing their services. And you can also get it sent off to someone, with a better scanner, with a drum scanner, but that's going to be really expensive. It's not practical for, everyday use. So, it kind of stunk, but I found out then that, you can actually apparently just take a picture of it. You just take a picture of your film, literally, and then it's on your computer, just like with your DSLR, just like with what I'm, using to film here. So I figured, being the industrious, handy individual I am, how hard can that be? It can be hard. So it can be hard. And the reason is, I found out, because it's very, like, what you have to do to get a good film scan is very ambiguous, complicated, and very precise at the same time. You need to be very exact with what you do. And also, a lot of people don't know what to do. There's a lot of conflicting opinions and not a ton of information, because it's kind of a niche thing. So, after a while of doing this, I have a pretty good idea of what to do and some lessons I've learned. And I thought I'd show you my setup, which is this. Get this thing focused. So this is my setup. I'll flip that thing around there. Yeah, so I thought I'd show you my setup and talk about my reasoning behind what I did and what I plan on doing in the future, so that maybe I can stir some creative juices in someone out there, and you can decide what you want to do, and we can all help each other out and everything. There's like a handful of things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the orientation. So when it comes to one of these setups, I want to talk about the orientation that you set it up in, so you can set it up horizontally or vertically. I want to talk about using the tripod and how to set that up. The tripod. And then I want to talk about what you do to hold your film, how you hold it in place and hold it flat, and then light source you want to use, and the lens, the kind of lens you want to look for, and some post-processing. So first things first, do you want to set it up vertically or horizontally? And I determined I wanted to set up vertically, so that means up and down with a tripod, with the camera pointing down. Because here's the deal, if you set it up horizontally, I've seen some people make some rigs that are very convenient and small, especially to store. But if you set it up vertically, it can be bigger when you actually have it out, but you can still make it so that it's easy to store when you put it away. So the storage isn't really an issue. And the thing with setting it up vertically is you want the camera and you want the film to be parallel to each other, to be on the same plane. You want them to be perfectly parallel, otherwise you'll have parts of the film out of focus. if you set it up horizontally, you need to make a rig so that it is like that, so that it's perfectly set up like that. But then you've got to like make it out of wood or metal or something, and you're talking about how precise you want to be, and that's difficult, and that takes time, and you have to make a rig in the first place. But if you set it up vertically, then all you have to do is take a level, like a bubble level, and put it on your camera and put it on your film, and so long as they're level, they're parallel, which is just great and easy. So that's why I went with vertically, and that's what I think you should do. All right, so now let's talk about the tripods. All right, and sorry for the relatively narrow shots here, guys, but this is my widest lens. So let's talk about tripods. Any tripod will do. All right, if you get a set of macro focusing rails. Now, speaking of any tripod, let me try to find the number on this. Okay, this is the tripod I have. This is a Slick Pro, what is that, 700DX? I like this tripod. I'm going to go on a tangent real quick. So I like this tripod because it is only $100, and I mean the legs are only $100. The head, that thing, the thing that you put your camera on, is separate. People will tell you that you can't get a good heavy-duty tripod, which this thing can hold an RP67. It can hold a Fuji GX680, which they're both pretty big cameras. But people will tell you can't get a tripod that will adequately hold those for really less than 200. But you want to get this one because they're wrong. And this is your unicorn. This is why it pays to do your research. But that's besides the point. So you can get any tripod for this, so long as you get some macro focusing rails. Now, I don't have any macro focusing rails because that's my next step. But what they are basically is it's just an attachment that you can put on your tripod that will allow you to finely adjust your camera forward and side to side. And if you can, you want to get a 6-way rail that allows it to adjust in and out, because that will allow you to finally focus your camera on the film, and you don't have to mess around with this. It's not there, it's over here. You don't have to mess around with this knob up here and trying to take something that's very imprecise, which is basically just a friction lock, and doing precise movements with it. So you want to get some macro focusing rails for your tripod. And this head doesn't matter, it could be anything, but I'll probably link that in the description if you're curious. All right, so now let's talk about holding your film. So this is your film. This is a piece of medium format film. And I started by sandwiching the film in between two wood boards with a hole in them, just big enough for the picture to show through, which is the design that you'll see most film holders use. And that will work, but it doesn't hold it very flat, and that's the problem. There are some film holders that work like that will hold it pretty flat, but most of them won't. And certainly if you make anything homemade, you're going to have kind of a hard time of it. So then I moved to this, which is a piece of glass. And it's basically sandwiching it between the piece of glass. And this is perfectly flat. You're not going to get flatter than this. But the problem is it introduces these things called Newton rings, which are just patterns that will show up on your film. And that just comes from the glass surface being pressed against the film. And you also can have more dust with this. Here's a spider. Hi, friend. Anyway, you can have more dust with this. There are a couple other problems. I forget what they are, but the Newton rings are the big one. So I moved from this. I'm going to get rid of that. Hold on while I readjust. Come in here. I moved from that to this, which is a compromise between what I ultimately want to do and what I can do right now, which is flattening the film with relatively heavy objects against a piece of glass. What this will do is it'll eliminate one of the glasses. Oh, reflections, that's right. So the other problem with glass is it introduces reflections. So this will eliminate some reflections. It will reduce Newton ring occurrences, but you can still kind of have that. So what I ultimately want to do one more minute while I take my freehand here. And so I want to take the film, and this is a rough estimation of what this will look like. I want to take the film and I want to lock it between two pieces of wood. So like this, you take another piece of wood, you lock it down there, and then clamp that down, okay? And do that on both sides and then stretch it out. And it won't fall through because it'll be clamped to both sides. But what that will do is it will evenly, because it's clamped between two boards, it will evenly stretch the film out so that it's about as taut and flat as it's going to get. And then you don't have glass, you don't have any Newton rings, and it's very flat. And you don't have to deal with wet mounting or anything, which is another thing that I never tried because it seemed too complicated. And that apparently works pretty well, but again, I don't want to deal with that on a daily basis. So yeah, so basically you stretch the film taut and then it's very flat, and that's what I'm going to do next. And that's what I think the ideal thing to do is. There's a, I'll try to put a link to it, but there's a forum post out there where a bunch of people basically did this, and specifically one guy heavily experimented with this, and he had a lot of success with it. So I'll try to remember to link to that.